women in today's world are superhuman, and you have to agree to that. They are professionals, career women, wives, moms, all at one time, juggling each role so well. Today we're going to talk to one such woman, Shruti Tiwari. Shruti is a film and theater actor here in the Bay Area who made her big screen debut in 2009 with Imtiaz Ali's Love Aaj Kal. Let's talk to her. Hi Shruti, how are you?
Hi Shelly and hi Viraj. Thank you for coming into my home.
So nice to be here. How about we start with a little bit about yourself. Okay. On your resume, it says Columbia University, investment banking at JP Morgan, New York, motherhood, and finally film and theater acting. I bet this wasn't planned. How did this happen?
No, it wasn't planned, and life kept throwing surprises at me. You know, when I did start investment banking, I had this very clear plan and I could see the road ahead and I was just going to charge through it and accomplish everything. And by the time I'm 30, blah, blah, blah. And life had its own plans for me. And as I gave control to life, I found myself encountering very pleasant surprises. So it wasn't planned, but it has been great.
Okay, so was it the kids or motherhood that made you change the decision, or it just happened the way it is now?
You know, it was all of it. I've always done theatre and stage. I was a classically trained Bharatanatyam dancer in India. So I've done radio in India. I've done some Doordarshan, for those of you who still remember Doordarshan. So I've always been involved, and but I also studied very hard, like all typical Indian homes. Education was the most important thing, and I knew I could make it that way. So once I was in New York, already married, and we were both studying at Columbia, the next best thing to do to pay off my tuition and everything was to find an investment banking job, because it was monetarily one of the best options available. And I did that for a few years, and once my kids came along, actually after my daughter was born, I did go back to work.
Okay.
And I realized it wasn't something that I could do. My heart was torn, and statistics really reverberate with me. And she was a 90th percentile kid, and when I went back to work, she fell to a 50th percentile kid. And I said, no, I can't let this happen. And I think that's when I discovered something about me, that there was this person who needed to be with her children. And I made that choice, and I thought I was going to be a stay-at-home mom for good. And then something inside me, I kept listening to that inner voice that made me want to come back to stage, and I just started with community theater. And one thing leading to the next, this director recommended me for that. That casting director saw me in a show. In fact, the casting director for Love Aaj Kal saw me in a show and just reached out to me when she was asked to cast Love Aaj Kal.
Wow.
So things sort of fell into place for me, and these were not things that I'd ever planned for. But I'm glad they happened.
Yes, definitely. It's amazing how life takes you to places where you never thought you would be. But
exactly.
Well, it's really good. I checked your theater work, and you have a big list of theater and film work. There's a list here I have with Baby Taj, Mirrors of Mumbai, and your films as Love Aaj Kal, Karma, Sati Shaves Her Head, Bicycle Bride. So tell us something about your theater and film experience.
So at first, I primarily focused on theater, and every show that I did was on a recommendation from my previous director. And I loved that word of mouth publicity that I was getting, and it was just the right amount that I could handle while my kids were still young. And during that time, I met some incredible directors who helped bring out the sort of softer side of me. As you can imagine, investment banking had turned me into a very, let's just say, one-note wonder. And in fact, one of my directors, Anne Novak, who cast me in a one-woman show, she helped me find the more feminine side of me. And I credit her with a lot of the nuances that I've built into my acting repertoire since then. And she kept saying that I should try film, and I always, in my mind, had believed that theater was a more expressive and gratifying medium than film, and I'd shut myself to it. But of course, when a Bollywood film came knocking, I wasn't going to say no.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and And once I did that, I started noticing that while theater gives a certain kind of dimension to the character portrayal that you get into, film allows for magic to happen.
Yes.
Film, you have to let go of control because there's so many elements that have to work for that moment of magic. But even the smallest moment of magic lasts you a lifetime, and the creative satisfaction is intense. It's huge. I can't compare it to anything.
And is it like larger than life when it comes to films as compared to theater, which is live and I
Yeah.
guess more practice goes into it, or?
I think a theater, you have to have a persona. You have to create a larger than life persona in theater. In film, the less you do, the better it is.
Oh.
And that's when your raw emotions, what a real human being reacts to or feels, the more you let go of control in film, the better it is.
Okay. And what do you prefer as an actor, films or theater?
You know, at different points, I crave different mediums. If I'm doing a lot of film work, which is what I've done over the last 3 years, I was craving theater and went back to theater earlier this year, and now I'm ready to do a light-hearted comedy because I've done some very intense character work. But both of them are very different, and both of them are equally gratifying.
Okay, and talking about intense work, now this is with regards to your most recent play, Aftermath, and I remember you telling me it's a very sensitive role and it did bring tears to your eyes. I want to know, does working or playing a particular character or getting immersed in a role for some time, does it affect your personality, your perspective socially? Politically, or does it affect your mood for that particular time? Does it interfere when you come back home to your kids and to your husband? And is there anything you need to cope up to switch yourself back from that character to Shruti Tiwari?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think the best way to describe it is Shruti Tiwari, that person that I had control over, does not exist anymore. And I gave a little bit of myself to each of my characters, and then each of my characters has become a stronger voice in my life. I'm a very organic actor, and this last role was of an Iraqi refugee woman who loses her family, her husband and her child of 2 months in a car bomb explosion. She herself is burnt all over.
Oh.
And this was a docudrama, so it was based on some interviews that two playwrights come journalists had conducted in Jordan of some refugees from Iraq. And there was no way for me to get around this role because it wasn't a role, it was the life experience of a real person.
Right.
And there was no way I could say that I can relate to what it feels like being 90% burnt or carrying scars every day, having lost the love of your life. One thing that I felt most connected to this character about was the grief that she felt for the loss of a child. And I hooked my hat on that. I researched a lot of burn victims, etc. And the hardest part was hearing the screams. And you go on YouTube, you'll see from that part of the world, there are just so many stories.
You cannot see through those videos. I cannot.
Exactly. It is
heart-wrenching, and yes.
There's nothing I can put around it. So yes, it left an impact on me, and it took me weeks to recover from that. And there's a part of me that just wanted to shut myself from all that research I had done and get away from it. And the best way of doing that was to be around my children and, you know, hug them, cuddle with them, play badminton outside, just get as far away from the realities of life.